It's all the I don'ts. Those will always be there. And yet, when you take time and create space to envision what you say you want and what you intend to do and what you're really willing to act on, there is something magical in the universe that it opens up and provides what you need so that you can truly unwrap your gift to the world.
Welcome to the MINDTRX Podcast with breakthrough ideas to live your best life possible and how to make it happen. I'm Paul Scheele, and today we will be joined by Jacquelyn Wieland. Jacquelyn Wieland advises C-suite and senior leaders in the financial sector of Fortune 300 companies. She is a keynote and workshop speaker, as well as the creator of the Congruent Leader, hosted on Leaderpass. Jacquelyn brings expertise in unlocking individuals' innate leadership style so that they can connect, engage, and align with their teams, clients, and organizations to influence strategy, alignment, and transformational shifts. Hello, Jacquelyn. Welcome to the MINDTRX Podcast. So glad that you could be here.
Oh, Paul, I am thrilled to have time with you. You are always one of my favorite people to get into things with.
Well, thank you. And, we've had so many cool conversations about leadership development. That's the space that you operate in. And we share a philosophy that in order to have a leadership in an organization, association, that's the context in which the leader shows up. And we believe that the best way to develop leadership is to develop the leader, the internal leader, and their powers and capabilities to do their best job. Could you say a little bit about why you feel it's important for all of us these days to be on to our development as leaders?
Sure, Paul. I love that you brought in the internal aspect of the leader. And where I spend a great deal of time on leadership development with individual leaders is just that. It is what is their internal, their intrinsic, the voice in their head, their expectations, beliefs, thoughts. And then what needs do they have or expectations do they have from others and or their environment that either feed their performance and success or that really take them into reactive behaviors or stress behaviors that limit their performance. And when we talk about that internal leader, each of us are a leader, regardless of what we're doing in our lives, whether it's home, business, community, we're all leaders. And how do we show up as our best self? So that's a great place for us to spend some time.
Right. So I've wrote my doctoral dissertation on the importance of all of us here on the planet today are called to be transformational leaders, that we're here to really help in the transformation of the human family into a future that's different than the past, one that is more sustainable, more holistic, more just, and really permits all of us to live into the fullest expression of who we are. Now, you spend your days quite often coaching individuals, and you have said that what tends to show up most is the ways in which they get blocked, that it's limiting beliefs, that it's their narrative, that it's their self-talk. Could you say a little bit more about what you find is really the block to someone's fuller expression?
Yes, I can. I'm going to take an example of a call I had last week, and I think that'll help people relate to where I'm going to go with this. I was speaking to a woman who had been with a company for 30 plus years. She was in her early 50s, and she is not done yet. She has more to contribute and more to give. And in our call, a lot of our time was spent on what others would think, or would they decide for her that her career was done, or that there were not other, roles for her because she was of a certain age and had been with the company for so long. And as we went through our coaching call, we talked about the voices in her head, beliefs, narratives that she had gravitated toward that were not validated or tested. However, she was holding them and they were limiting her. And I would have to believe that many people can relate to having limiting beliefs that hold us back, or narratives that we create in our minds that we tell ourselves over and over that limit what we're willing to move forward on. And so when we talk about the importance of being present in the moment, and you and I've spent time on this in conversations, it's we have to really check and validate, are those past beliefs, messages, words, stories, are they real? Do they serve us? And can we release them so that we can move forward? And in the coaching calls that I have, it's often listening deeply to what people say and how they say it, so that there can be a testing and an examination of whether that's still worthy of holding on to, so that they can be fully present and then move into what their future opportunity is. And, that's the work where you talk about transformation. The transformation in my mind is, where are we today and where do we need to go?
Yeah, I think it's an important idea that you're bringing up, this notion that we have thoughts in our heads, we have stories that we tell ourselves, and these become assumptions that hold us from moving forward in the ways that we would like to. But
Yeah.
in the reality, they don't hold us, we hold them. And unless we put them to the test, unless we challenge those assumptions, and we live in what I call a disorienting dilemma, where part of us wants to move forward, but there seems to be something holding us back. So that distinction that you're making in listening to your coaching clients and being able to discern the difference between what's reality and what's not, we hear what might be called the surface structure of their language, what they're saying, the story that they're telling. But then there's a deeper structure as well. There's those areas of gaps, those areas of feeling that they can't, or they won't, or they ought to, but they must, and they won't. So how do you help someone when they're not with you personally to be able to start listening to some of that self-talk and challenge it effectively when they're out there on their own?
Which, and that is the challenge, isn't it, Paul? For each of us, how do we stay aware enough of our internal dilemma or disconnects so that we can make those shifts that we say are important? And what we do, or what I do in coaching with them, is we really spend time not on, we don't go broad. We really try to narrow down and think into, what is it you say you want? What is your intent, that your desire? And then getting granular on, what is it that's keeping you from that? What is the belief, the word, the story that you're repeating? And I can often in a coaching call hear, if they've repeated something 4 or 5 times, I can elevate that and say, well, in our short 7 minutes together, you've mentioned that your age is an issue. Where does that come from? Or I had a call with someone several weeks ago, and their challenge was that they wanted to have fun at work, and yet the way that it was being framed up, it was work. And so therefore they were in avoidance of this project because it was work. And so
Yeah.
we spent time reframing. And I use those two examples in the sense that people will tell you what their block is if you listen deeply and don't interrupt them. They will repeat things, they will justify, and they will validate. And then, as a coach and a thinking partner, holding that mirror up for consideration and self-examination, they can either respond to it then, or they can take it away and think into it. And what I have found, because we don't just do a one and done, you're doing a relationship with your coaching clients where you're having multiple conversations, it's really helping them have that awareness of when that thought comes into their head or that story when they say it, and then inviting them to consider releasing it or reframing it or not saying it.
So this idea of reframing, I'm not sure that everyone would know what that is. It's thinking about it differently, putting a different framework around it. What if this wasn't true? What if this is true but not completely? And what if there's some other interpretations of it, different perspectives? And it's a powerful thing to do. Do you ever encourage people to, say, journal, for example? I had a podcast with someone who really promotes the idea of journaling, self-reflection, or taking time to meditate or to think about some of those beliefs that they're holding that might not be serving them. Is there something that you might recommend?
Yes. And so what I would say on that is it depends on the personality, behavioral style of the individual. And I am not a one size fits all coach. I'm very much about meeting them where they are and really aligning and understanding what their unique need is. So for people who are very deep thinkers and they tend to be more introspective, it's journaling is awesome. That gets them to think into their thoughts and really be reflective and sit with it. And I think it's great for everyone. However, there are some people that I work with that is not happening on the best day.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So my best bet, my best, like, here we go, is oftentimes, I'm a fan of your Paraliminals. I'm a fan of short lessons. I'm also a fan of like being able to give your clients books on Audible and have them drill down to a certain chapter or a certain topic and really make it where they can listen. And then, of course, we've created content, which I think you and I'll talk about on Leaderpass, the Congruent Leader, where we have micro lessons. And I'm finding that having things in anywhere from a minute and a half to 4 minutes, if you can have a learning lesson or a reflective, that's a useful tool for people to think into and then help them honor their style and their need of how they do things. Some people go running and you want to plant the seed that they're thinking about it while they're doing physical activity. Other people will meditate. One size fits all is a myth.
Right. And certainly, even if I do have a great practice, I've talked with a lot of people who have their hour of power every morning. It includes exercise and reflection and study and meditation or contemplation of some kind, maybe prayer work. They're on their best day, they can do that. And there are some days they're just too busy to start
And then
out
there are
differently.
days.
Right.
Paul, this is like a little side download. It's that whole piece of habits. And I would say That's one of the coaching pieces, just like the words and the stories. Those are habits. It's like a comfort place. And so part of what we're doing is if you really want to live out your intent, you're challenging the habit or the routine and creating a disruption.
Yeah, I like that. So let's talk first about how does someone get a clear intention? It's one thing to say, yeah, I need to face this day with a clear intention. Well, what's your recommendation for how someone gets to that place?
It is not a light switch moment, is it? So I'm going to give you this. We had a call scheduled with someone that we wanted to work with on creating content. And she called me 10 minutes before we were supposed to go and have our thought call this morning. She goes, I can't do this. And I said, okay. I said, I've been talking to you for 6 years about you wanting to create your own business. And uh, this is one way. It's not the only way. And ultimately, what I had to say to her was just be willing to hold a container of space for this being a possibility. You don't have to do.
Mm,
Let's just create that space of learning and curiosity instead of a yes, no, right or wrong. So then
yeah,
the question around how does someone get clear on their intention? The reason I share that is we all have things that we say we want to do, and yet we don't put effort, we don't make priority, we don't put action to traction. And therefore, it's just a nice to say. So the piece when we're doing coaching around intent is, are you saying that's your intention because it's what you think you're supposed to do? Or is it what you truly want to do? And if it's truly what you want, what is the evidence or the shift that you're going to make? And that can be in relationship, in words, in making career shifts, relationship shifts. What is it that you're going to release? What is it you're going to move forward on? And how will you know that it's important to you? What is the evidence to you? It doesn't matter. I'm not an accountability coach. I'm more of a let me help you think into, and then let's really think into the shift that you need to make and what's going to make a difference in your future or of that with your team. And if what I know, and I know it from years of work, I also know it from conversations you and I have like spent time in and on in our friendship and relationship. If you're not willing to prioritize it, it's not that important yet.
mm, yeah. So let's, I love the statement that you made earlier about holding the container of possibility. If we can't at least envision the possibility of our having the thing that we claim we would like to have, it's really not going to become a reality. If we don't believe it, if we don't sense it, if we don't put action to it, it's probably not going to turn into reality. So rather than trying to figure out how am I going to be able to accomplish this, which is some kind of action scenario,
Mhm.
just hold the possibility, hold the container of possibility. And what I've seen over and over again is the opportunities show up, the insights show up, those little side bands, those downloads come in, and then you can say, yes, now I can see a way to get to where I want to go. Now I know how I'm going. I know that there is a way. I might still not know exactly how I'm going to get there, but now I know there is a way. And that tends to light people up, don't you think?
Absolutely. And really, Paul, what we're both saying without saying it is we're releasing the need to control every aspect of how it's done. We're being willing to create space to allow it to be done.
Yeah, the way I love saying it is instead of predicting and controlling our lives, it's that sensing and responding to what life is bringing at any given moment. And that brings us to another idea. It's that a leader's skill is to be adaptive, agile, and resilient so that we can stay in the game long enough to have those downloads, to hold that belief long enough, hold that intention clearly enough, long enough, so that when the timing is right, we can then act on it. I remember a phrase decades ago that luck is when preparedness meets opportunity, right? And could you say a little bit more about how we might develop the skills of being more resilient, agile, and adaptive?
Sure. Lately, resilience has come up a lot with my corporate clients. And the other thing that has come up is conversations around losing confidence, where people have felt like I'm confident. However, I don't feel as confident in this situation. And there's also a lot around being adaptive as a leader and being agile. So when we think about those words, what we're really talking about is our ability to flex, to be present in the moment that presents itself, and really pulling from what we know, our sense of competency. What are the skill sets we need to have to do this so that we can stay resilient? And that resilience for me is, if your tire thread is too thin, you're going to have a blowout and you're not going to cope. And if it's too thick, you're not going to feel the bump in the road. You're not going to have that awareness of where you need to adapt or be agile as a leader. And so it's really being willing to adapt to what is in front of you so that you can be responsive and resil through it. You've got good coping and you can see where the opportunity is, and you can pull from what are the skills, attributes, and the knowing that I have that I can take into what's being asked of me and my team.
I love that. I love that distinction, because then it's not so much about confidence, but a deep inner knowing that you are competent in situations like this. You have been, and you will be in the future. So rather than thinking that the confidence should be there in a situation you've never encountered before, why not fall back into that deep inner knowing that you will have the resourcefulness needed. It will show up as you need it in the moment if you stay present, rather than worried that I'm not as confident as I should be.
And the other piece of that, Paul, is when we think about authenticity, because that's also really big. It's like, I need to be authentic. It is okay for leaders of others to be authentic with them and say, we're being asked to create something new. We're being asked to do something new. We're being asked to transform, to be we're transitioning into a new space. And I don't know exactly how this is going to go. I don't have every aspect defined. However, I know we can do it. And I know we have the aptitude, the skill, the knowing to move forward. And that leans into that leader and then leadership. It's how you connect and engage and how you collaborate with others and bring them along and grow them so they can lean into their full potential.
Yeah, that's a good distinction also, because in modern leadership, we need people who can think and be adaptive and to flow with what's emerging at the moment. I mean, who knew that a global pandemic would show up and pretty much wipe out the global economy for a
Right.
couple of years. So, I mean, there's just no way to know what kind of disruptions are going to be there. But those organizations and the leaders who are most effective were those who are adapted, those who recognize that we need to keep our team together, whatever it takes. What do we have to do to be able to make that happen? And so they became catalysts. They became co-creators. They weren't falling back on being the expert leader, right? The
Yeah.
leader on the white horse who's leading the charge into the unknown. It's not really the kind of leadership that's required, but to be able to host, sometimes being at the front of the group, sometimes being behind and supportive of the group, but always being fully present. I love that you've mentioned this idea of being present, because then our communication is far more congruent. We're able to be authentically available in the moment with whatever's showing up.
Yes. And leadership is not about having followers. It's about meeting people where they are. And that is the really core when we talk about this intentional leader or this adaptive leader. They need to go up so far in how they show up. And then they need to bring people along and coach from the standpoint of, if this is your intent, what do we need to do to help resource you so that you can do that
Yeah,
when they're leading a team?
I remember Ken Blanchard's work in situational leadership. He said that a leader has 4 significant roles. They direct, they coach, they support, and they delegate. And it's a track that you have to follow. You don't just tell people what to do and then wait until they screw up. You're really there and really present. So I'd like to take a little shift and talk about your work, the Congruent Leader. I loved it when you shared with me that you had developed this new program, but also the way to present it online through a new organization that you're a big part of called Leaderpass. So could you first say a little bit about what Congruent Leader is, and then share how it's shared through Leaderpass? What is Leaderpass?
Sure, I would love to. So the Congruent Leader was developed 2 years ago, and it's a lot of my life's work working with corporate leaders and educational leaders, different people in groups, and then also working with assessments. And this idea of, if our intent is this, but we're experienced another way by our behavior and actions, that by nature is incongruency. So how do we create our awareness of self, awareness of others, and then really lean in and understand where we have connection to self and others and where we have disconnect to self and others? And so the aspect of the Congruent Leader is founded on that. And then it's delivered in micro lessons. So when we say micro lessons, rather than me lecturing for hours, we have different tiles, kind of like a Netflix piece. There's different tiles that you may have a lesson that's a minute and a half. It could be a 4-minute lesson, and they're titled, awareness, mindset, beliefs, different things. So people can go into their individual learning channel on Leaderpass on the platform, and they can pull up the topic that's of interest to them. And then at the end of each learning module, there are workbooks. So if people want to write down their lessons and journal and write notes, it's all there for them. And it's done in a way that instead of needing to study the whole thing or listen to the whole book or the whole lecture, you can plug and play with what you need in the moment based on what's going on in your present and what you're leaning into.
So this is the kind of thing that a large enterprise, associations or educational organizations, financial organizations that you work in, they can send their employees, their leaders, managers, supervisors, and so on, to go get this kind of instruction as needed? And how does someone gain access to that?
So, Paul, what we've done is with large companies that I work with, we bundle it in. So it's a bundled solution into if they're doing coaching, year-long coaching, thinking partner pieces, the Congruent Leader is an additive along with assessments for them. However, individuals, if they want, they have their own license. So they go to Leaderpass, they can go on to the Congruent Leader, purchase an individual license. It's about 9+ hours of content in micro lesson format that they have access to on a yearly license fee. So we have designed it where people can do it as a corporate license or an individual license to utilize that. And we are also providing that for schools from a leadership development, associations, and different organizations, which has been really exciting to see that as something that can be a standalone tool or it can be an additive to consultative work when people want that in-person or hybrid solution.
And is this something that general public can gain access to as well? If somebody watching this is interested in enhancing their leadership skills, could they get access to the Congruent Leader?
Absolutely. All they have to
Okay.
do is, and I can send you that link so you can put it with it, but it's on Leaderpass, it's the Congruent Leader, and they just purchase a license and they're on their way.
Excellent. So you had mentioned you're working with someone who wanted to put her content on Leaderpass. Could you say more about? I meet a lot of people who have on their hearts and minds something to share with the world. Is there some way that they could use this platform to have online content, online teaching, to deliver their work?
Absolutely, Paul. You were a voice for me, and you know this at the first of the year when this opportunity came up. And I went into partnership with Jamie Minton, who had founded Leaderpass. And we specifically created this side of the business that is for thought leaders, people who've written books, coaches, speakers, experts in areas, so that they can there's different ways they can go about it. They can have a podcast produced and they can be on the Leaderpass podcast series. They can create content so that they have their own channel with content like I've done with the Congruent Leader. There's a series of ways that they can have content. If they have content already produced, but they want it to sit on Leaderpass, they can do that. So it really, there are tiers of ways that thought leaders can be involved with us and be on the platform. What we're finding is that digital content is the new book, where we used to think, oh, we have to have a book or we have to have that. Yes, and, it's great to have a book, and it's great to have this digital content where people can know you differently and experience you. And, to your listeners and your thought leaders that are in your circle, we are happy to have those conversations with them about how that can be done.
And I'm thinking that a lot of people get stuck on the idea, well, I need to write a book before I could do an online program about it. But I'm hearing you say you could write the Congruent Leader as an online program before the book comes out, and the book could emerge after it.
And that's what I've done.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting. We did the Congruent Leader, and for me, we did 2 days of filming, so there was a lot of content. And then we realized we have 80% of the book done because the Leaderpass team can take the dialogue and they can write for you. And in fact, we just opened Leaderpass Press. So we now have the division of either helping people write the book or they can write the book after. So we have that in place for them. And now I'm working on a new program that is around this aspect of confidence, resilience, and competency. And we're playing with, okay, what do we need to, sketch out? And then what do we want to put on Leaderpass first? And then have the book as the follow-on.
I think it's a powerful way for anyone who has in their mind the idea that they've got a message to share with the world. And as you and I have agreed, we're all here
for a purpose
to support humanity. We're all here for a purpose. And why not live big? Why not step up and into the true mission, the purpose that's on your heart and mind to share? So when you decided to take a role with Leaderpass, you saw this as an important next step. And I love that also the Congruent Leader showed up as an important next step. So is there something that you could share with us that would help anyone who's getting these kinds of downloads, instead of brushing them off, being able to lean into it, to be able to lean into a potential future that's actually showing up through them?
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend?
Do it.
Just do it.
Paul, that is such a great and real question, and it makes me want to cry. And it's not sad tears. Like I am so joyful that when the downloads come, I lean in, and that I fully trust what's coming to me is coming to me for a reason, a season, and a purpose. And if I don't grab it, I could miss it. And so rather than, a lot of people live in this place of they hold on and they overthink and they think it has to be perfect and exact. And I'm kind of like, screw perfection, just go forward and get it done. And because, we don't know how long we have. We don't know any of that. So we've got to really, live it and contribute and lean in. And so what I say to people is, if you have this burning desire or this thought of what you want or you aspire to be, or the difference you believe you're supposed to make, the purpose or contribution you have, whatever that is, have enough appreciation of yourself and your individual design to gift you to the world.
Ooh, it's beautiful.
And if there's hesitancy and there's the part of, I don't have enough money, or I don't this, or I don't have enough time, or, it's all the I don'ts. Those will always be there. And yet when you take time and create space to envision what you say you want and what you intend to do and what you're really willing to act on, there is something magical in the universe that it opens up and provides what you need so that you can truly unwrap your gift to the world.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And, sometimes those downloads are just little niggling thoughts of, wouldn't it be awesome if we could have this change happen in the world? I remember a client of mine who had that thought, and she looked around the room and realized she was the only one who was having that thought. So she realized, I think it's me. and as a result of that, has built amazing nonprofit organizations serving in her state. Just it's huge. But it was, who am I to be big enough to have that happen? No, she's grown into the role. I remember at Morehouse College, there's an image of a crown and said, the crown isn't placed on you when you graduate. You grow into it up to it so that you are crowned. And really,
Yeah,
isn't that what growing the leader within is all about?
it's all about that. And we never stop. I mean, that's the other
Hopefully,
part
yeah.
is, well, you know, we never stop.
Yeah.
And maybe we stop like at some stage, but we go on to another. And it's this piece of we've got to let go of this mindset belief around age and the numerical. And it really is around how are you showing up and what are you here to do and what is the shift. And we are the ones when we do that, we limit ourselves. It's not other people. Other people are busy doing whatever they're doing. And I think oftentimes, and I see this with coaching clients, they give other people too much credit or they think they're spending too much time thanking them. And what I would say, and I often say this to them, is that is your ego. And I promise you, most people who are busy doing stuff do not have enough time to think about you that way.
That's great. Yeah. So, as a kind of a final wrap up idea, I just love this notion of accepting an idea as your next chapter, the next possibility for the expression of who you are. And if there were no limitations, if you had no associations of negativity or incapacity, if it was landing on you, it's landed on you for a reason. Do you have any final thought about what a person can do from here to really take charge of who they are as a leader in the world?
Well, it's that you've got to sit with yourself quiet for a moment and ask, what is the difference you want to make, or what is your contribution?
Mm.
And then be willing to be honest about what that is. And then when it comes to you, and it will, if you're listening to yourself, and you probably already know what it is, have the courage to lean in and allow yourself to take ownership of it. And what I mean by that, I feel like I'm the next Louise Hayes, and we're doing it on Leaderpass. And I'm going to bring people's thoughts and expertise and messages, and we're going to put it in digital content, and we're going to bring them to the world so they can make a difference. That's not about me being the one doing that. I'm just going to help facilitate it.
Beautiful.
And Paul, what I would say is I've always known that at the end of my time, that what people are going to say about me is she made me think. And I think there's something magical about knowing that, is if you know the difference you want to make and it's in your heart, then allow yourself, give yourself permission to lean in and be free of the good opinions of others. Just go.
Yay. Perfect note. Jacquelyn, so good to be with you. Thanks for the inspiration, and thanks for all the good work you're doing in the world. Thanks for being here on the MINDTRX Podcast.
Thank you, Paul. It was a delight. I look forward to seeing you again.
Me too. Bye for now.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Jacquelyn Wieland. You can learn more about Jacquelyn at www.solutionsprovided.com. And now in the second part of the podcast, it's just you and me. I'll tell you how to use the Paraliminals sessions in the MINDTRX app to easily handle obstacles and move toward the success you want, especially as it relates to Jacquelyn's message. If you're new to the relaxing Paraliminal audio sessions, they use breakthrough technologies to activate your whole mind in only 20 minutes to help improve any area of your life. Let's get going. Hi, and welcome to the follow-on to my conversation with Jacquelyn Wieland, where we're talking about you as a leader in developing your leadership potential by developing the leader within you. A lot of cool topics, things that are near and dear to my heart. Leadership development was a major part of my doctoral work, and it was a pleasure to work with somebody on this podcast who really spends 100% of her time in that space. And in thinking about how we might take on more of what she was referring to, I've thought about our conversation in 4 different areas for our own development. The first is the idea of having a clear intention. The next is how we show up congruently. The third is staying present. The fourth, developing confidence in yourself. And finally, how we bring our dreams forward. Now, the use of paraliminals is, as you recall, this idea of there are resources within us that we are getting in contact with and then expressing out into the world. I like to think about these resources as vast, literally infinite. They are here by divine appointment, and you are here bringing those gifts and talents into the world, unless there's some kind of block or barrier or limitation that you may place on yourself. So remove those. Paraliminal technology helps you bring the full measure of your true potential out into the world. So let's talk about this idea of having clear intention. Sometimes I've said to people, hey, if you don't have a goal, set a goal to have a goal. It's okay if you're not clear on what it is you want quite yet. Not a problem. 2 paraliminals that really help in not only developing a clear intention, but also then actualizing it or living into it. One is called peak performance, and that's about establishing for yourself what it is you want and how you would show up each day to bring that out into the world to the best of your ability. And another one, power thinking. It's a paraliminal that lets you think into your own thinking about what's important to you so that you can really leverage the tremendous power that a single thought has. When you are focused, a single thought is a power in and of itself. So having a clear intention is worth any effort that you might put into making it happen. And I just referred to the idea of actualizing, self-actualizing, and actually self-actualization is a good paraliminal that might be very helpful here as well. The second area is the idea of showing up congruently. Congruent leader is a brilliant idea that Jacquelyn came up with. It's based also on authentic leadership as well as adaptive leadership. But this idea of you showing up today and living congruently in whatever context in which you may find yourself, first of all is the paraliminal called self-discipline, where you're clear about what it is that you intend, and now your actions, your behaviors can be fully aligned with that. So self-discipline is actually being a disciple of your own intention, a follower of that clear intention that you set for yourself. The second is instantaneous personal magnetism. And while it's to be able to be charismatic when you show up, it's also about eliminating those negative behaviors that take away some of the true power and potential that's available for you to use if you weren't engaging in some of those negative behaviors that cause a leakage of that true vitality and power that you are. So instantaneous personal magnetism and self-discipline. Now, in the area of staying present, I think the number one paraliminal for that, the one that will help you practice being present at any moment in time when you're around others, is active listening. You're actually practicing what I refer to as uptime. It's not being in your own head, not being in your own mind, but being here in the moment. You see, mind has the ability to travel to the future and travel to the past. And what we need to be able to do is bring mind home into this moment, right where you are, right here, right now. And active listening will help you do that, especially when you're in the presence of someone else who's sharing an idea. Second paraliminal here would be positive relationships. It's really awesome to recognize what an impact we have in the lives of others. And if you want to establish a community of support around you to help you get where you want to go, relationships are always going to be the way to make that happen. And session B on positive relationships is exactly that. So play with it. The fourth area is developing confidence in yourself. And there are two. One is called fearlessness. See, fear is the thing that detracts us from recognizing that we are competent to handle a situation that may be coming up for us. Fear that we tend to live in is an emotion about the past. So we tend to bring up from the past and place those failures and mistakes in front of us. And when we look at that and try to get to the future, we're thinking, I can't because I've got this history of some mistake. And it's really a faulty conclusion about who we are. And overcoming that, fearlessness really helps. Now, the other paraliminal is anxiety-free. And anxiety, unlike fear, anxiety is an emotion of the future. It's imagining ourselves not having the resources we need to handle a future situation. And so we feel a sense of anxiety about it. And if we were to imagine ourselves on the other side of the successful accomplishment of it, the anxiety disappears. So this kind of two-pronged approach to developing confidence is really a powerful way to go. Fearlessness and anxiety-free. Play with them, especially if you find yourself hesitating about something that's important that you want to do, you have the ability to do, but for whatever reason, you're not doing it. As Jacquelyn said, take a look at it, reframe it, challenge the assumptions that are behind it, and realize that you are the one that we've been waiting for, that you've been waiting for. The final area is bringing your dreams forward. And certainly with Jacquelyn's work in Leaderpass, anybody who does have an idea that they want to bring some great work into the world, if it's on your heart and mind to do it, then let's get on it, right? First of all, is not worrying about how it's going to happen, just hold that possibility, that container possibility that it can happen, and you will find the best ways and means to make it so. Let's start with the what, not the how. And living the law of attraction is a beautiful way to do that. I wrote that with Jack Canfield, recorded it, and it's a great way to get started on what really matters to you. And the second paraliminal in this area is wealth motivation, where you establish for you what your contribution to the world is. And remember, the more you help others get what they want, the more you will be able to get everything that you want in life as well. You're here for a reason. Jacquelyn knows that. I know it. Thanks for being here. Make the most of this day. Live wholeheartedly into it. Be the true leader in this world that we know that you are. Have a wonderful one. I look forward to seeing you in another session. Thank you for joining me today. I applaud your willingness to maximize your potential. You can easily use the Paraliminal audio sessions in the MINDTRX app to stimulate your non-conscious mind, that is, your inner mind, to reduce any resistance in your life and to propel you toward the success you want. Go to www.mindtrx.com/go. These amazing audio tools have helped millions, and I encourage you to bring them into your world today. Be sure to be back for more episodes of the MINDTRX Podcast. You'll find insightful conversations with authors, experts, and thought leaders, all devoted to improving your life's experience. Thank you again for being here on our MINDTRX Podcast.